Canadian Amhara Society Alliance. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I would like to thank also the committee members for inviting the Amhara voice in this hearing. Speaking of the current situation in Ethiopia, there is only one war conducted under state of emergency, which is the war on the Amhara people that started in April 2023 and was launched in a coordinated manner by the Abiy regime, Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, and the Oromo Liberation Army, OLA, following the war in North Ethiopia. For more than 13 months, the Abiy regime subjected the Amhara people throughout Ethiopia to unlawful state of emergency and put them under siege. As a result, thousands have been arbitrarily killed, subjected to weaponized rape, collective punishment, hate speech, and profiling, arbitrarily imprisoned and held under cruel, inhumane, and degrading conditions. Civilian infrastructure, religious and cultural sites have been deliberately targeted, including those protected as World Heritage Sites. The use of schools as a military camps has forced over 4.1 million children out of school. Millions in need are not receiving humanitarian relief. TPLF, in a clear violation of the cessation of hostility agreement it signed on November 2, 2022, launched attack in Raya and Talant areas since April 12, 2024, committing ethnic cleansing, where scores of civilians are killed and young children are burned alive. Ethnic-based attacks have continued in Oromia region. On May 31st, 2024 alone, Oromo Liberation Army militants killed and abducted Amhara civilians in West Shoa zone. All these coordinated attacks by the Abiy regime, TPLF, and OLA demonstrate a pattern of deliberate acts which have the hallmarks of genocide, war crimes, and crime against humanity. Considering the imminent existential threat and after exhausting all peaceful venues in response to the ongoing genocide, the Amhara people had no other option but to exercise their human and legal rights to self-defense, led by the heroic Fano movement. The Amhara Fano represents a diverse cross-section of the Amhara society, including farmers, business people, civil servants, medical doctors, engineers, university professors, and school teachers. In less than a year, the Fano movement has gained control of 90% of the Amhara region, established democratic interim administrations, and brought peace to areas under their control. Here is our recommendation. We urge the Canadian government to explicitly condemn the Abiy regime for its atrocities against the Amhara people and take urgent measures as 1. Demand the Abiy army and TPLF forces leave the Amhara region immediately. Demand ending telephone blockouts, including internet in the Amhara region. Allow aid organizations in the Amhara region to provide humanitarian assistance. Pressure countries such as United Arab Emirates and Turkey to stop supplying weapons, including drones, to the Abiy regime. Refrain from supporting the so-called national dialogue and transitional justice process promoted by Abiy regime to prolong its stay on power and avoid accountability for heinous crimes it committed. Impose sanctions against the Abiy regime, including economic and diplomatic. And lastly, refrain from funding the Abiy regime, TPLF, and OLA directly or indirectly. It is worth noting that last month, the Canadian Minister of International Development, the Honorable Ahmed Hussein, announced 14 million Canadian dollars to support disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration. TPLF proudly uses such funds to re-invade Amharas. As Canadian citizens and taxpayers, the Amhara diaspora strongly opposes Canada's promoting double standards in its policy toward the Amhara people. Instead, we urge Canada to make a meaningful shift in its policy and act.
Please wrap it up. Time is out, please.
To stop genocidal war on the Amhara people and promote genuine peace, democracy, and justice in Ethiopia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite Mr. Semana Jamel, President from Ethio Canadians for the Human Rights. You have the floor for 5 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Ethio Canadians for Human Rights makes a special reference to human rights violations in the Amhara and Oromia regions. Ethiopia's crisis stems from the 1995 constitution that changed administrative borders from a unified republic to a federation of ethnic regional states drawn on ethnic fault lines. Unlike Canada's democracy, Ethiopia's constitution grants rights to ethnic groups over individual rights. Ethnic federalism is troubled with inconsistencies. as ethnic communities don't live in discrete homelands. Ethnic homelands had endless conflicts among 85 ethnic groups that coexisted for centuries. After 3 decades of experiment of ethnic federalism, Ethiopians were fed up of it. In 2018, Ethiopia and the international community welcomed Prime Minister Abiy with euphoria. Hopes for change and reform were further emboldened when the Prime Minister received the Nobel Prize in 2019. Regrettably, the unfortunate Ethiopians got neither peace and security nor political reform. Between 2018 and 23, there were 5,000 clashes, indicating 1,060 conflicts a year as reported by BBC, of which 58% happened in the Amhara region alone. Conflicts cripple government functions as 65% of the country is out of regime's hands. Land transport to regional capitals is risky or closed for traffic. Due to the state of emergency, the Amhara region atrocities are committed against Amharas, particularly in schools, churches, and mosques. Drone attacks have been a hallmark of government campaigns. The emergency subjected activists, journalists, and religious leaders to disappearances, executions, and detentions. Amharas who lived in harmony in all parts of the country for centuries are brutally killed, demonized, labeled, and displaced, leading to ethnic cleansing and genocide. Human rights abuses are appalling in the Oromia region, where Amharas are slaughtered like a chicken, as reported by The Guardian. Killings and wanton human rights violations are concocted and acted by government authorities, as chronicled by the U.S. Ethiopia 2023 human rights, often against international humanitarian law and Ethiopian constitution itself. Human Rights Watch reported that National Defense Forces massacred scores of Amhara civilians in the Amhara and Oromia regions in what the European Center for Law and Justice called it the Marawi, Burayo, Shashamane, and Metakal massacres, and so forth. Amhara farmers, the historical breadwinners, are denied fertilizers. It is a means used to starve the people by political fiat. This happens when the United Nations reported over 30 million people are needing urgent food assistance. The intent of genocide is amplified with the government of Ethiopia threatening to slaughter thousands of people overnight and warning its opponents of a consequence deadlier than the Red Terror of the 70s, which the African Union reported over 700,000 killed at the time. The fighting, anarchy, and genocide may soon be internationalized. Cognizant of the dire human rights situation in Ethiopia, we recommend for Canada, a home for over 100,000 Ethio-Canadian taxpayers, to call the government of Ethiopia release Amhara and Oromo parliamentarians arrested unconstitutionally. For example, Christian, Johannes, Taye Denda, and Dr. Kasa, and release all Amhara, Oromo, and all political prisoners, journalists, activists, and opinion leaders, and lift the state of emergency in the Amhara region to establish an all-inclusive transitional government. Stop meddling in religious affairs and guarantee citizens' right to religious freedom. And for Canada, we should unequivocally condemn the government of Ethiopia's despicable killings of rape and marginalization of Amhara women, girls, and mothers. And Canada must immediately work to save lives by providing emergency humanitarian assistance to the Amhara people who suffered more than any other region. Canada that helped Ethiopia...
Can you wrap it up, please? Time is over. Can you wrap it up, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I would like to invite Johannes Berhe.
Thank you to all the witnesses for your important testimony, your courage, and for representing so many people that are just been subjected to terrible human rights violations and the terrible atrocities that are happening in Ethiopia. I know that Mr. Berhe, you haven't had a chance to speak yet, and your group, the Ethio-Canadians for Human Rights, it represents really a true cross-section of Ethiopian ethno-linguistic groups. And we heard about the failure of the Pretoria Agreement, the inner conflict. We're really hoping, I think, at this committee today is how we can best support, getting peace and stability in Ethiopia. Maybe you can talk about the situation in Ethiopia, that it's so dire, and your view, and what is the best way forward to resolve the country's political ills?
First of all, I share with Ms. Maza and Mr. Kidari, we share the same heritage. And what I see the claim in terms of genocide in Tigray or any other place, sometimes it misses the point. First of all, they are entitled to their own opinion, but they are not entitled to their own facts. The facts on the ground is completely different. At this time, there is a cessation of conflict in Tigray, and the TPLF has total control in Tigray. Yet, there is famine in Tigray, and they still accuse the other part of Ethiopia, like Amhara or Afar. So the sole responsibility when it comes to Tigray at this moment is on TPLF. As a matter of fact, TPLF is with the Abiy government. They are the deciding factor now. So we cannot talk. This is what disappoints me. They don't talk what is happening now to Tigrayans. They are suffering now, the famine. So TPLF for the last 30 years was in power. 27 years was in power in the central government. So the sole power for the last 30 years plus in Tigray is the TPLF. Are Tigrayans better off now than 30 years ago? No. They are worse now. And the sole responsibility is on TPLF. And they are not partner in peace. And if we want peace, we have to make sure that, first of all, Tigrayan and Amhara, they share culture, and they have been living for years, for centuries together. And most Tigrayans, they go to other parts of Ethiopia to make a living. My family, they went from Tigray to other parts of Ethiopia, and they lived peacefully. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Mr.